Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Spiritual Crash. This is episode 9. I am Gethin Mayers, and today we're going to be talking about stepping into a spiritual church for the first time. So, stepping into a spiritual church for the first time, lots of people tend to associate church with, Christian and stuff like that. There is a lot of similarities, but then there is also a lot of differences as well. So, I'm going to basically just break down what you can expect in spiritual churches. Don't get me wrong, every spiritual church does something different, but that's what makes the community so beautiful, and you'll find a church that works best for you. Obviously, if you only got one church option around you, then yeah, unlucky. But where I'm from, there's quite a few churches around me. So let's start off with when you first enter. 9 times out of 10, you'll be welcomed very, very much when you enter the church. Because the spiritual church is all about community. It's all about welcoming everyone. So no matter whether you are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever you are, you're always going to be welcome. No matter what your background is, no matter what you've done or anything, you'll be welcome in the spiritual church. Because a lot of the time, most people don't even know who you are. And a lot of the time, they don't tend to stereotype. So you'll be very welcomed. You'll probably enter through the door, and there'll be someone to greet you. It's normally a charge. Some churches do it for free and do donation based. Others just it's like our church, for instance, Abersucken is £3 entry, and we sell raffle tickets. I know a few other places they give you a raffle ticket free on entry, so that's where some of the differences is depending where you go. So you'll come in, you'll find your seats, and basically then the service will start. So the service tends to start with an opening prayer. So the opening prayer is basically a prayer which allows people to... I don't know how to explain it, but like the mediums will do an opening prayer to kind of say thanks to the spirits, kind of do a bit of protection, kind of send like a bit of healing to people who need it. So it's like an opening prayer to open the service, basically. So the opening prayer is one of the most important parts, I would say, because you can see if someone really cares about their mediumship and stuff by their opening prayer. If it's a bit slapdash and they haven't really prepared, or they're kind of very short opening prayers where they haven't really thought about it and it's kind of rushed, then yeah, you can tell like a lot of the mediums haven't got the passion and stuff. Whereas I always read my opening prayer, so I've pre-wrote it, so I've put a lot of passion into it. I sat down, channeled it with my guide. So I pre-wrote mine before. Because I'm dyslexic, I could stand and talk to people, no problem at all. But reading things out, it pushes me out my comfort zone. So I always pre-write all my opening prayer and anything. So you read that. Some churches do the Lord's Prayer, some churches don't. It all depends on the church. Abersucken does do the Lord's Prayer. And then it normally follows by like a healing hymn or something along those lines. Then this is where it gets a little bit different. Some churches sing one song. Some churches go to the philosophy, then sing a song or a poem or a talk. Some churches do song, philosophy, song, mediumship. So this varies massively, but there is singing involved in a lot of the churches I have gone to. A lot of them do tend to have song sheets and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. So it's my favourite part of working in churches and going to the spiritual churches is the singing. So I do enjoy the singing quite a bit. But yeah, so then the philosophies I think are another really important. I think philosophies are more important sometimes than the mediumship. Well, that's a far stretch, but for the medium, then I feel like the philosophy can have a bigger impact than the mediumship itself, because the philosophies are a good way for the medium to show that they've healed, to show that the medium has learnt lessons, to show that the medium has gone forward and done something that they needed to do. Whereas when you see a medium turn up and they don't really have a philosophy prepared, or it can just show that there's a bit of an order in their life, or that they're kind of giving it half-hearted, or... So, like, we had one medium turn up to our church before, and they didn't even have a opening prayer, philosophy, or a closing prayer. So I had to step in and do it for them. Don't get me wrong, sometimes there is reasons why they don't have a philosophy, and some people just ain't very good at winging it on the spot. So, yeah, I think it all depends on the person, but I do think, me personally, I think the philosophy is one of the important parts of the service, because even if you don't get a message, you're able to take something from that service. And yeah, a lot of the philosophies, they do make you reflect, they do make you feel like comfort and stuff like that. So I do think the philosophy is a big part of a church service, and most churches you do go to, the medium will do a philosophy of some sort, or a poem, or a talk. Some are good, some are bad, and I want to be one of these mediums who is remembered. I want to be remembered by my philosophy. So my philosophy style have changed slightly. Whereas before I used to do quite personal stories where it was more like people had to take the lessons from my life. Now I've kind of shifted it more so that it can attract a wider variety, and anyone could read the philosophy and it could touch them, if that makes sense. So that's what I've shifted with my guide. I sat down, and now when I channel properly, rather than putting my own thoughts in, I just let him crack on. So yeah, I read my philosophies as well. I pre-write them all beforehand. So then you go on to the demonstration of mediumship. So this is the main section of it. The reason why most people go there. This is where the medium will prove that love and life is endless. So they'll bring through evidence to show you that life carries on. Again, don't get me wrong, it depends on the medium, because some mediums aren't very good. Some are just, yeah, they shouldn't be on platform. And then there's others that are really enjoyable because they got a bit of personality. So I like the mediums who are able to find that mixture between having good personality, being able to deliver good evidence, but also keeping the crowd engaged, because there's nothing worse than when they got very good evidence, but they deliver it in a boring manner, because no one wants to listen to someone who's just monotone and there's no personality. It do get a bit boring, even though what they're saying is very accurate. But then you also have it on the other side, where you have like a very rubbish medium, and they're just too busy focusing about like the comedic aspect of it. So you're having a good time, but there's no evidence, so you're not actually gaining anything from it. And then you got the ones in the middle, who kind of like vary massively, who they're rubbish and they don't have personality. They're the absolute worst, and you can see that they lose the crowd quite easy. So I just wish that when you first go to a spiritual church, I do hope that you have a half good one, because if you go and there's not a very good one, or they're very boring, 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to go back. So my best advice would be go 3 times, because 3 times will be enough for you to know if it's for you, if it's not for you, if you like that kind of thing. Because, yeah, especially if you're a person who's on the fence, if you go and watch a bad medium, you're going to be like, yeah, I was right, it's a load of rubbish. But then if you go and watch a really good medium, even if you don't receive a message, you'll be like, oh my God, maybe there is something, because how would they know this? So I always would recommend 3 to 5 times before you make your mind up on whether the spiritual churches are for you. So once the mediumship has happened, the section normally lasts about 45 minutes. They'll get called to time. So when they get called to time, this is basically where, yeah, it's time up for the hall, basically. So then they'll basically say, like, thank you so much for working with me, blah, blah, blah. Sorry I couldn't get around to everyone. And then they'll probably do a closing prayer. And then you do there's like a Lord keep me safe prayer. So it's like a closing prayer. I don't know what the point is of the Lord keep me safe, secure from all my fears. May angels guide us while we sleep till morning light appears. Amen. I don't know what it's for, but it's nice to close on. And then some churches, like the one I worked last night in Aberdeen, they do a song at the end. They do Absent Friends. I know quite a few churches that actually do songs now right at the end as well. So more singing, happy days. So yeah, and then you do raffle announcements, and they normally announce like next week's medium if they have any like shows or stuff coming up. So the churches, I think, are your bread and butter. If you are coming into the mediumship and you want to actually do the mediumship. So what I just explained was from a guest perspective. Whereas coming into the churches for the mediumship, that's going to be your bread and butter. That's where you're going to learn the most. Watching other mediums is how you learn the most, because you learn like, oh, I'd like to be able to work like them one day, or I'm definitely not working like them. And I've gone every Sunday, apart from when I've gone away fighting or if I've been on holiday. I've gone pretty much every Sunday. So I've watched a wide variety of mediums in my journey. And let me tell you, there's some parts of them where I'm like, yes, I like how they did that. I'm going to try and implement that in myself. I'm going to try and work on that. But then there's also mediums where they've worked and I'm like, I will never work like that. If it kills me, I will never work like that. So I've learned so much from other mediums because it's like the way they say things, the way that their stage presence is, the way that they've engaged the audience, the way that they're giving the evidence, what kind of evidence they're giving. So there's so many different factors. Their philosophies, you can learn a lot from their philosophies. I know quite a few philosophies that sparked interest in my own mind, in my own body. And listening to their philosophies just made me want to write a philosophy for it. And then there's also when you're actually working, you learn the most when you're working in churches, because when you're in circle, even though it's a safe environment, eventually over time, you start to get used to the people that you're working with. So in the circle, you start to get to know them. So you have to challenge yourself a little bit more. Whereas when you go to churches, you have such a wider energy, a bigger field of people to choose from. So you have to really tune in and really narrow it down where you're going so that you know, like, I'm in this area. Whereas I know I see a lot of mediums who just, like, chuck it out there. So they'll be like, right, I've got a man here. He used to work in the coal mines. Obviously, we're in Wales. He used to have problems with his lungs. Can anyone take it? And they've opened it up to the whole audience. And then you've got about 15 hands going up because obviously, again, we're in Wales. It's a very generic thing. And they'll just try and narrow it down, which I don't like this way of working. I prefer knowing where I'm going. I prefer knowing, right, I'm in this row. I'm on this side. I'm in this section, and it's something that I'm battling with at the moment because sometimes I'm absolutely spot on. I know exactly where I'm going. Other times I'm like one or two people off, which, it's just something I'm just being hard on myself and need to work towards. But I'm getting there. And that's what I love about spirituality is the fact that you can still keep learning, the fact that you can think you're very good, and then all of a sudden you have a wake-up call and you realize you're not. You realize you're not at the standard you need to be. So work in a church, it builds your confidence. That's the main thing, is building your confidence. It also can knock your confidence. If you go out on platform too early, it can definitely knock your confidence. So if you're learning off someone, my best advice would be listen to when they tell you that you're ready. Because if they don't think you're ready, they're only doing it to protect you. They're not doing it for selfishness or anything like that. They're just doing it to protect you. But if you're adamant that you want to go out, just be careful that you don't destroy your confidence, because some people out in the audience, they're cruel, especially like the older generation of mediums, because a lot of them are very, very cruel, because they've set a certain standard and they want you to get to that standard. So just be careful going out on your own. Normally you'd go out with your mentor. You'd normally be a fletchling, so they would do a reading, you'd give a reading, or you'd give one reading. You'd just sit at the front to feel the energy, because the energy is completely different when you got everyone looking at you than when you do in the circle. So when I always work, I always shut my eyes just so that I don't get interference from people's facial expressions or stereotyping people. I always shut my eyes. Obviously, I open them when I've given the information, but I don't want to put my own thoughts into it. I don't want to put my own brain into it. So I just allow spirit. So I'll always work with my eyes shut, which it might work for you, it might not. There's so many benefits from it. And I think if you are looking to go work in platform and work in churches and stuff, the main things you need to work on is your stage presence. So a lot of people tend to get nervous before they get up and work, but this is completely normal. As one of my old rugby coaches used to say, turn them butterflies into dragons and let the dragons fuel you. So, so I always, whenever I get up, I know it's a good thing when I get that butterfly feeling in my stomach, because it means I care. It means that I want to do the best I can. It means that I don't want to let people down. So, your stage presence, most important. The confidence will come. As soon as you start working with spirit, they got your back, right? So I know there's like a lot of people, they're like, oh, what if nothing comes through? And it might happen. It might happen, but spirit got your back, and there would be a reason. If anything, it would be the fact that you've put the own doubt in your head. As soon as you learn to trust spirit, they'll never let you down. And I've started to learn that they'll never let me down. And yeah, it's always us who lets ourselves down, not spirit. So just remember that. And it all comes down to self-sabotage, which we can talk in another episode because I've done it. I've been there, done that with the self-sabotage. And yeah, and then it's your delivery of the message. So there's some do's and don'ts that you do when you're delivering a message in church. It's a little bit different to a private setting because obviously there's more people and you don't know who's actually in the audience. You don't know whether there is family feuds or anything like that. So you just got to be a little bit mindful with like how you deliver it. And then also your philosophy and your opening prayer and all. They're my little tips. Just write an opening prayer, write a philosophy. And yeah, they're my little tips and tricks for if you are going out on platform. I can cover this in more depth. But I remember my first church was Simply Spiritual in Cwmbran. I remember getting up as a fledgling, and what an experience it was. What an experience. I remember it to this day. I gave a reading to a gentleman, brought his brother through. Can't remember the rest of it, but that feeling of getting that confirmation to someone I don't even know, yeah, that's when I realized this was for me. So you might get up and you might realize that it's not for you. You might realize that you never want to actually work platform. But going to church, getting that community, has saved my life. If I never went to that church, I probably wouldn't have cleared my headspace. And yeah, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you all now. But yeah, the church saved my life. The community was just so welcoming. Every time I've gone to church, I've left feeling better. I could have the worst day in my life. And yeah, every time I've left, I felt so much better in myself. So I'm not too sure what we're going to cover in next week's episode. I think maybe tips on grounding and self-healing is a good one to do. Yeah, we're going to do tips on grounding because I feel like a lot of people aren't grounded these days, and it will help if you're away with the theories constantly and you're entering the churches, it'll help to ground yourself. So yeah, that's just the little thing that we're going to cover next week. So I hope this has given you a little insight on what to expect with a spiritual church. I could probably talk about it in more detail, because like every church is completely different. So if you did want another episode, just comment down. If you have any questions about spiritual churches, maybe I can build and answer them all for you. So this has been Spiritual Crash, episode 9. I'm Gethin Mayers. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm proud of you. I believe in you. And let's go and smash wherever life gives us.